Last time we talked about considerations for removing a load-bearing wall, a few things that you need to think about before just hacking away at a brick internal wall. Today we are going to be taking this monstrosity out and hopefully you'll learn from some of my mistakes. Hi folks, and welcome back to the show. Today we are taking out this brick nuke. We talked last time about some of the structural considerations, so please do go and watch my previous video before you attempt any kind of job like this. Always get a structural engineer involved to give you a second opinion. Don't just go knocking down brick walls and assuming everything's going to be all right, because brick walls normally are structural. You don't build a brick wall for no reason, but in this case the reason they've done it like this is because on this side it was a coal bunker, on this side it was a pantry and the kitchen, and I think they've done it like this to kind of provide a bit extra like heat insulation from effectively what would have been the outside. You can kind of view this bit of the house as being outside. It's also the reason why they've insulated above the ceiling there, but we don't have a coal bunker anymore, thankfully, so we can get rid of this and make this room a whole lot bigger. Now, I have had a little bash at the bricks at the top there, and they are not budging. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of remedial work here in order to make it a bit easier to pull this down, because otherwise we're gonna be fighting a losing battle. And that means making a few cuts before we start on the demolition work, and that'll just remove a lot of the kind of interlocking and things like that. It's normally one of those things that once you make a start, it'll come down quite easily, he says, fingers crossed. But while everything is kind of interlocked together, it's much, much harder to get individual bricks knocked out. So I'm gonna do a cut down here. I'll knock off some of this plaster so that I can get the saw a little bit closer to the wall. A nice neat cut down there, that'll remove the corner interlock. And I'm also going to have to cut down this corner here. I can't get the saw in from this side, but I can get it in from the kitchen side, so I'll be doing that as well. So it's worth mentioning that I'm using my concrete saw with water dust suppression. The alternative is biblical levels of dust to the extent that you can't see where you're cutting. Sometimes I'll use the saw with water and sometimes I'll use it without. While water certainly helps with dust management, it's not the be-all and end-all and comes with its own disadvantages. The water can quickly wash any lines off the wall, so I always try to do an initial scoring cut to mark the cutting path. The saw itself is significantly less manoeuvrable with a hose attached. Wherever you're cutting will be absolutely drenched, and this can take a while to dry out, especially in the winter. And you generally end up being soaked from head to toe. That's why I'm wearing chainsaw chaps, by the way. They just work quite well to keep my work pants dry. But that's why for some smaller cuts I don't bother connecting the water up. It's just not worth the hassle. But in this situation where it doesn't really matter if the house gets wet, and I've got quite a lot of big cuts to make, I might as well make use of it. So we've completely run out of rubble sacks, and that means a new pile of goob has started to evolve outside, which isn't ideal. But what I don't want is all of that wet plaster and kind of brick dust and stuff just festering away on the wood floor, because, well, it's not great. That needs to dry out. It did get pretty wet, but we have got the cut done up this edge. Ignore the state of it, it's not the neatest job in the world, but that is now detached and you can just about see daylight through there. And I've got the cut done down that edge, just to kind of, as I say, loosen the toothing. And once again, I've removed all of the kind of wet plastery dust and stuff. The dry stuff can stay there until I get some rubble sacks and we'll bag it up, but I don't want the wet stuff sitting in a pile on the floor. And I've just taken those floorboards up just to let a bit of air get under there and dry that out a bit, because it did, as I say, got pretty wet. And then I've also done the cut down this edge here, which is going to be our new kind of internal cavity leaf, if that makes sense. And I've done 2 cuts on either side, and I've just had a little look in here just to see what's going on. And we do indeed have blown cavity insulation, which is good news. I will need to kind of shove something in that gap temporarily just to stop the insulation blowing about until I get a chance to brick up the outer leaf. But I wanted to have a quick spy to see what I'm up against, but the rest of that I'm leaving in for now. But we've got 2 cuts down that side and 2 cuts down that side, so we'll knock that out, have continuous insulation all the way along. I do still need to do all of the cuts here to cut out for the toothing to properly brick up this what was a kind of doorway thing, but that can wait for now. That's not particularly urgent. I'm not doing any brickwork right at this second, but when I do attempt my bit of bricklaying, I need to kind of cut out every second half brick and remove that, as I say, that bit that I've just chopped down. But for now, I think that's enough for today. I need to get this boarded up again to make it vaguely weather tight, and then tomorrow I can make a start on pulling this down, hopefully. I might start it tonight if I've got time, but I want to get that boarded up first.
vegetables. Can't see. So,
And folks, that is the wall down. It wasn't easy, but to be fair, it only took about an hour, but it was hard graft for an hour, I'll tell you that much. The bit I thought would be the hardest to get out was actually really easy, which was the bit just above the damp-proof course at the bottom there. Quite pleased I managed to get that out, but hopefully you now see why life was much easier doing those cuts in advance. I've got like a little bit up the top there that I couldn't quite get the saw into, that I'm going to have to chip away probably with the STS. But other than that, that's a really neat edge, and that can, well, I haven't quite worked out what we're doing in terms of plastering in this room yet. Might be easiest to just dot and dab this back wall, but obviously we've still got this to brick up. That'll be a future video on something, either the public channel or the member zone. Haven't quite decided yet. In case you're wondering why I've got like a strategically placed rubble bag there, it's basically protection for these water pipes, because they're capped off under there and I didn't want any bricks hitting them, so that's there for a reason. But we got through it more or less unscathed. And by the way, testament to our little friends, little red wall plugs. This last little chunk of brickwork here, it's only held into this post with a screw and a single red wall plug, and it just will not come off. I've tried a crowbar down that edge and all sorts of things. I just cannot get it out. I don't have my screwdrivers or tools with me today. I was kind of hoping I could just kind of rive it off, but that ain't happening. So we're stuck with that there until I get my screwdrivers. But again, you can see the cut that I did in advance down that wall there. So everything here is pretty much ready to take, just as I say, dot and dab. But a couple of little bits here are a little bit proud. I need to chip away at them. And yeah, you can see the whole ceiling arrangement now. And there's the plasterboard that was running over the top of that solid brick wall. And as I say, that was a giveaway to me that it wasn't really doing anything of any value. I mean, you could maybe say that these two joists were resting on it. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's going to be a new stud wall built down here anyway, so that's going to offer an element of support. I wouldn't call it structural, but because the bathroom is going to be above there, it's probably going to help matters a little bit. That pipework obviously needs rerouted, but that's a job for another day. We have got a lot of clear up to do now. I don't have a wheelbarrow here at the moment, so I'm going to have to like try and work out how to get a wheelbarrow here. And we've probably got about, probably about 1.5 tons of bricks to move from that wall, I would have said. They are kind of everywhere at the moment. But anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. The project continues. There's a lot to do on this renovation in a relatively short space of time. And as I say, a lot of the content is over on the member zone of the kind of more detailed behind the scenes stuff, really. But fear not, if you're not on the member zone, there is going to be plenty of stuff on the public channel as well. But you know, if you are thinking of taking on a renovation project like this in an older property, it's a bit of an eye-opener, and that's what we're hoping that you're going to learn from all of this, what is involved in turning a house around in the real world, and it's a lot of work. Anyway, onwards and upwards. I need to find something to do with all these bricks. See you later, folks. Look after each other, be nice to one another. We shall see you next time. Tatty bye.